What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to share the break and retest strategy in all of its glory. I have probably one of the cleanest examples that I've seen for a very long time, pretty much a perfection example of the break and retest on the NASDAQ futures from last week. I wanted to make this video to reiterate, re-educate, get some new viewers accustomed to exactly what I look for to enter trades, an idea of how I execute that trade, live examples. And this example today on the NASDAQ futures, trading QQQ puts using the futures as my guide is probably one of the cleanest live trading real life examples you're going to see on this channel of the break and retest strategy. So use this video as somewhat of a free course type video. It's going to go very in depth on the break and retest. I'm going to go ahead and share with you exactly the mindset behind the trade, and then also share the live trade where I make about a 40% trade, all live, and you can hear my thought process as we trade it. The break and retest continues to be the strategy that I trade. It continues to show up everywhere in the market, and I figured that this example would be something great to share with you viewers out there. So with all of that said, make sure to press that like button, subscribe to the channel. Let's jump right into it. So guys, here is last Thursday and Friday, last week, Thursday and Friday, and this is the NASDAQ futures on the 15-minute chart. One of my favorite charts to watch for intraday action. And so coming into Friday of last week, we can clearly see the lows of the previous day. Now, the previous day lows and the previous day highs are my two favorite things to look for break and retests. Break of previous day low, a retest of that low and a rejection, or a break above previous day high, a pullback into that high, a hold of that high for a potential long, right? So if I could illustrate that, right, on our screen, if we have a high here and a low here, right, let's say that these white lines, this is a high, this is a low, I am looking for a break and retest of that low, or a break and retest of that high for a long or a short opportunity, right? So that is where I am most confident in the break and retest. Now, of course, there are other levels you could be watching, pre-market highs, pre-market lows, some intraday levels for break and retests, of course, but I believe that the strongest trades come from the break and retest of either the previous day high or the previous day low when we're talking about short-term options trades. And this is exactly what we got on Thursday into Friday of last week. We can see that we had previous day lows around this 14,830 level. We had this pre-market low around 14,800. So for me, I was looking very heavily at this 14,800 level. You guys can see right here, we had a somewhat of a low of day around that 14,830. We had pre-market double bottom lows at 14,800. And so I was very focused on this 14,800 zone, looking to see if we could get a break and retest of that zone for downside. So what we can see here, right, coming into Friday, we got a very aggressive flush intraday. We saw a very aggressive move to the downside. We can see we even had a perfect supply rejection of the pre-market highs. Very nice there, right? Nice entry for downside, pre-market high rejection. You broke the pre-market lows, you broke the previous day lows, you moved to the downside. Now, later in the day, we pushed back up into that level. And this is where things start to get interesting for me, right? You can see we are pushing back into that previous low, back into that double bottom low from pre-market, and back towards that previous day low. And that is where you start to see if rejections are going to show up. So if I go to the 5-minute chart and I go back to that previous Friday from last week, what we can see here is we have that push into that low, a push into that low, and a perfect rejection that started to step up, and a break of that intraday trend, right? This is probably one of the cleanest breaks and retests that I have seen on the market for the last few weeks, right? And this example really stood out to me, and I thought this was a great example to share with you guys. We got that push into that pre-market double bottom low, into that previous day low. We started to see the rejection step in, and this is where you want to start to execute your put options. Now, the reason for that, right? And you're going to hear that in the live trade. This may not be the most comfy entry for some of you emotionally, right? Because the market at this point is moving higher, it's breaking higher, price action is pushing up, and you probably want to try to long here. Now, the reason you can't long here is because this is exactly where the previous lows are, and that previous low will more than likely turn into a new rejection point. The reason why an entry here is valid is because if you're entering shorts at this area, your stop loss, right, is right above that high, and you know exactly where you're going to stop out, providing you a very solid risk to reward, right? So entering puts here at this retest level, sure, you could get stopped out if it moves above, but your risk is minimal because you know exactly the level that you need to stop out above if it does go against you. In this case, you needed to see the NASDAQ stay below 14,800. In this case, you can see the risk reward was a phenomenal risk to reward. Now, some people, right, maybe some newer traders are more comfortable entering after the rejection comes in, right? Maybe entering after the downside has already come in because, oh, market's moving lower, let me enter downside. Now, in this situation, sure, maybe you made some money, but if you're entering after the move has already happened, you are at risk of that thing bouncing back up in your face, right? We want to be entering at the retest level where risk to reward is at its greatest. A risk to reward trade is not going to be a comfortable entry. Positive risk to reward likely never provides comfortable entries. And I have an example of that once again today. So what you guys can see here today is if we go to the ES, I have a great example of this. And I shared this on Twitter. If you guys want to check that out, this entry today on our ES puts our S&P 500 downside today. Today on the group, we were watching this 4280 level on the ES, right? And we can see that on the ES, this is a perfect example of a break and retest, right? Break of that low, retest here, and retest here. Over the last 3 days, anyone that has shorted at 4280 has made a very nice profit, right? Rejections, rejections, rejections. Now, when you start to trade towards that 4280 level, it's not going to feel like the market's going to reject, right? Because this is trading, right? It's going to try to make you think that it's going to break out. This is where those traps set in. But if you're trading in regards to key levels, right? And we can see here on the ES, we had those previous lows, which turned into that triple top rejection. So if you're trading in regards to key levels, the only trade here is a downside trade, right? If you're under that 4280, the only valid trade in regards to risk to reward and in regards to supply and demand is a downside rejection play. Now, it's not going to feel comfortable at that time to be entering puts because the market is sort of sitting at that level. It's dancing around, right? It's trying to fake you out. But you need to have that mindset in trading that I'm going to enter what is best to risk to reward, and I'm going to accept if I'm incorrect here. So today, similar to that NASDAQ trade that we're going to talk about, we were entering ES puts at this level, SPY puts using that ES level, which resulted in a very nice downside. Now, of course, at this point, price action, right, makes you think it's going to move higher, right? You're pushing higher all morning. You get a little fake out candle here. It's not comfortable to enter puts here. However, it's the best risk to reward, and it's the best opportunity for a positive RR trade, which is using that supply and demand level, using the break and retest strategy. This is very similar to the NASDAQ. Going back to the trade that we're going to talk about today, you guys can see previous lows, turning into a beautiful rejection there back on Friday of last week. I hope this makes sense to some of you, right? I hope that this type of strategy is something you can follow. I think it's a very easy type thing to be watching, right? And so, for example, let's go to NVIDIA, because NVIDIA, as of right now, is doing the opposite, right? What is NVIDIA doing as of right now on the market? If I go to the 15-minute chart on NVIDIA, what we can see here is that NVIDIA is actually doing a break and retest to the upside as we speak. We can see that there was a previous low from Tuesday of last week. There was a previous high from Wednesday of last week. There was a high around this Thursday of last week. And we can see today, over the last 2 days, we broke, we retested that key level, and the long entry was at its best near this 430, 428 level, right? But of course, intraday, it's a little bit uncertain, right? It's a little bit questionable. It's not as comfortable to enter that long down here, right? Especially as the market's moving straight down. However, that key level, that retest level held, and this ended up being a fantastic long entry into end of day, and quite possibly could turn into a great long entry for more upside in the near future, right? So that break and retest, it shows up a lot, right? And it provides great opportunities for entry points. Now, the key here is finding that level that you're trading the break and retest off of. And in my experience trading this, I think the 15-minute, the 30-minute, the 1-hour chart are some of the best time frames to be looking for major key levels to play retests off. Now, today, I have a great example of this on Amazon. Amazon intraday today was going ahead and retesting a previous support level. So what we can see here is if I go to the 30-minute chart, we can try to find an important level on Amazon. Here's the 30-minute chart over the last few days on Amazon. And what we can see is we had previous support at 129, previous support at 129, previous general support here around 129. Now, on Friday of last week, look what it did. It turned into a very nice rejection point. And so today, we took a trade on Amazon using the same break and retest strategy using that 129 level. So what do you see here? You can see 129, we dropped, and we are pushing back into it. So if we're pushing back into that previous 129 support, let's see if it turns into a rejection. And if we go to the 5-minute chart today, you guys can see we had this little uptrend into 129 where I started to enter puts, and we got a beautiful downside move. Now, I can tell you from experience of watching other traders react to these types of trades from my Discord community, I can tell you with full transparency that a lot of people that were in this trade with me were not comfortable, right? They were not comfortable holding shorts around this level on Amazon because Amazon looks like it wants to push higher, right? Emotionally, that's what your brain is saying. It wants to push higher. But all of this upside is irrelevant if it is below the retest level of 129. You are pushing into a retest supply level, which should provide a potential rejection point. Now, it's not going to be comfortable to enter up here, but what does an entry up here provide to you? It provides your greatest risk to reward, right? The comfortable entry this morning on puts on Amazon was straight out of the gates as we went straight to the downside and you are chasing put options. However, that does not provide risk to reward. You are too far away from our retest level. We need to stay patient. We need to wait for our retest level to come in, right? And so once I started to see Amazon getting close to that retest level, I am entering put options using that level as my stop loss. And this level stems back once again to that 30-minute chart. I'm going to get a little bit more time here so you can really see where this level comes back from. If we go to the 30-minute chart, that 129 level shows up quite a bit, right? 129 here, 129 rejection here, 129 previous triple bottom, right? And in the short term, 129, 129, right? So this level showed up a lot from that 30-minute, 1 hour, 15-minute chart, which is where I like to find these a little bit heavier levels. And that is exactly what we did on Amazon today. Break, retest of that previous low, and it created a great opportunity for downside. So I hope that some of these examples are making sense, right? Finding that key level and watching to see if we're below it, do we retest it? If we're above it, do we pull back and do we hold it as support? But let's go back to this example on the NASDAQ futures, once again, illustrating how clean this was. Previous lows, break, retest, rejection, creating a very nice downside opportunity. I have this trade recorded live. I'm going to go ahead and share it with you. After you see this trade live, I'm going to wrap up this video. This is a real trade from Friday, all live. You'll hear my emotions, how I'm talking to the group, everything to sort of help you get an idea of how I actually execute this strategy. I'm not just talking about it here on the video, how I actually execute this strategy live. I hope you guys enjoy it. After that, I'm just going to wrap up this video. So thank you guys again for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel, press that like button, enjoy the live trade, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace. All right, I'm short Qs. QQQ 358 put. That's a 14.8 rejection right there. I'm in for it. So my idea here is that 14.8 stays under. If we go back over 14.8, I cut my Q loss very quickly. Under 14.8, I am confident on Q puts. Could fake me out here still, right? I'm in very early, but that's okay. All right, I'm okay taking an early entry to get a quick stop out. Small loss if I'm wrong, but this is the entry. Right? I'd rather be short here than be short, 20 points lower. If I'm wrong here, I get stopped out over 14.8. Okay, that candle on NASDAQ is not strong enough for me to get out of Q puts yet. No way. No shot. That's an interesting QQQ wick. That's an interesting NASDAQ wick. I might add to this. I'm adding. Oh, it's so good right now. Bear flag into 14.8. It makes a lot of sense. This is where the entries are uncomfortable, right? This is an uncomfortable entry, but it's the proper entry for a risk-reward trade. Doesn't mean it's right, but this is the proper entry. It's definitely there, dude. It's so there. Come on. It's so there. I'm letting it hold. I'm not touching it, guys. I'm not touching it. This is the situation where I don't want to touch this play. I just want to let it work out. All right, because it's very, very clean. It's the A+ trade of the day. This is the trade of the day. The 14.8. This is exactly what I was looking to trade today. So I don't want to let this one. I don't want to micromanage it too much. Yep. All right, taking some more off, up 25% there. I'm up nicely. Look at that QQQ trade, man. It just does not get any goddamn more beautiful than that. Beautiful. 14.8 break and retest. That is gorgeous.